New polling data is in.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Oh, it's just a busy Tuesday. There's a lot going on here. We've got our standout pollster, Joe Fleming, in, along with the guy that actually now helps craft the questions, not only report on it, Ted Nesi, to talk about the governor's poll and the Senate poll. So I want to get right into it. Just got on my phone that Whitey Bulger may have left the planet. 89 years of age, various reports. We'll have to talk about that tomorrow. I got nothing confirmed other than it may not have gone well in his new prison. Well, obviously, you know, one way or the other, but holy cow. I would stay tuned to Channel 12 and Fox 64. Tim White understands these issues better than anybody. I'm sure he'll be on this lickety split. Last night, before we get into the polling data, vigil in Providence. Of course, the president, as we tape, is reportedly en route to Pittsburgh. Some people are saying, please don't come, which doesn't help with the acrimonious atmosphere that we have in this country. But a pretty moving vigil last night.
It began with a moment of silence. After dark moments hit our country Saturday, 11 lives tragically taken after police say a man opened fire inside the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh.
If you got a heart, it has to hurt you.
A clear message is being shared by local religious leaders. When you attack a community of faith, the pain doesn't stop at that city, state, or even nation. It's felt worldwide by those who believe in a higher power. And for those reasons, hundreds come together for a vigil right here in Providence. Some compared hatred to a fast-spreading fire, one that can easily be defeated by loving one another. 11 candles honoring the victims are displayed here to remind us.
Look at everyone here bearing light. This is how we combat hate.
Local rabbis asked the crowd to continue doing the exact thing those 11 people were trying to do when they were killed.
May we find the strength to take action to repair our world.
And to just do your part. For the owner of the Shalom Memorial Chapel in Cranston, that means making the trip to Pittsburgh to help with those funerals.
I already talked to my cohort down there, funeral director, and she needs the help. She's overwhelmed, and I can understand that.
Let me tell you something. It was really a very moving ceremony. There were two things, well, three things. The presentation, the prayerfulness of it, the silence of a crowd, which was many hundreds, if not 1,000. I stood amidst them to just get a feel for how this whole thing was. And I will tell you, you could hear a pin drop with all of the very, very solemn prayers offered both in English and in Hebrew. A second observation, and I thought this was perfect, although there was a serious delegation of elected officials, including all of our federal officials and the governor, none of them spoke, which I thought was the right touch. There was no political aspect to this, other than the Reverend Donnie Anderson from the Council of Churches, who did a little bit of an NRA thing in the middle of his theological presentation, which caused this guy Gordon, the AG candidate, who was very calm here, but lost his mind in North Kingstown. He jumped up and screamed about how he was a Jew and how he was offended by it. It did have a little bit of a tone to it, but other than, and then he was quickly just kind of escorted out. Other than that, this was a beautiful ceremony, quickly put together by a community of people who really needed to be together. It was quite touching. Your prayers continue, I'm sure, as mine do, for those victims. Alrighty, to the story of the day before we get to the polls. Look at this headline. Ted Nesi did some journalistic work here, and this gentleman, Representative Keeble, is now, I don't know, figuratively, the walking dead in his election. I'm thinking this is a problem in some ways. I will tell you that people are innocent until they're proven guilty in a court of law, but in politics and in the public court of opinion, you can, you know, but I will tell you, this has legs.
12 current and former lawmakers I interviewed tell me Catherine Kazarian's complaints about Cale Keeble were well known in the House. Target 12 recently obtained a March 11th email from Representative Catherine Kazarian to Rhode Island's most powerful lawmaker, House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello. Kazarian confirmed the email's authenticity. In it, she shared her concern about how a key committee would handle her legislation, writing, "As we have discussed, I have endured years of sexual harassment by House Judiciary Chairperson Cale Keeble. Last year, you did not grant my request to have the bills moved to a different committee." Kazarian added, "I do not wish to be put in that position again." And she wasn't. We found the video on Capitol TV archives. When that hearing took place in April, Chairman Keeble was present at the start, but within about 15 minutes, he was gone, right as Kazarian sat down to testify.
Representative Kazarian.
Mattiello confirms he told Keeble not to be present when she arrived. Kazarian declined to discuss Keeble's behavior in detail, but told Target 12, quote, "The email speaks for itself, and all I wanted was a fair hearing." Keeble's lawyer has so far declined our request for an interview, but dismissed the claims as, quote, "unsubstantiated years-old allegations," and pointed out Kazarian never filed a complaint with the Rhode Island Commission for Human Rights. After becoming aware of the sexual harassment allegations Monday, Keeble's law firm placed him on administrative leave until, quote, "these allegations are clarified." And within 90 minutes of our first report, Mattiello removed Keeble as chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Mattiello also insists he repeatedly took action in response to Kazarian's concerns. We did reach out to Cale Keeble's lawyer tonight for reaction to this evening's developments. So far, we have not heard back.
Two candidacies. Mr. Keeble's is in jeopardy, but so too is Mr. Mattiello's. Mr. Fleming, Mr. Nesi, welcome. What's the pollster say about this a week away?
Obviously, if you're the two incumbents, not a good situation at all. It's the obvious. I mean, you have to deal with this over the next 7 days, 6 days, and try to basically hold your own and try to explain it the best you can. But you have to address the issue. If you don't address the issue, it's going to really look bad.
Is that you talking about the candidate or the speaker?
I think both have to address the issue.
Well,
not so far. The speaker issued a statement to me yesterday. He refused to answer questions in an interview on the record, but he issued a statement sort of walking through arguing, he first became aware of, as he put it, he described it as a falling out between the two of them. He did not, those are my words, but that's how I would characterize the speaker's statement. And he learned there had been an incident between them at an event in 2015, and he basically told, don't be in the same room together anymore. Don't talk to each other. And then fast forward to 2017, and Kazarian reaches out to the speaker and says, "I don't want my bills to be in front of Cale Keeble anymore because of the incidents we've talked about in the past." The speaker says she wanted to move her bills out of judiciary to a different committee, let's say like the education committee, since especially this was about a gun bill in schools. And the speaker said, "No, you have to go in front of Keeble's committee, but I'll send my policy advisor, who's a woman, to sit with you while you testify in front of Cale Keeble." And then this year, Kazarian reached, and he says he thought that worked out. This year, Kazarian said she reached out in the email that I obtained, and she said, I don't want to have to do what happened last year again. What can we do? And this time the speaker says he made Keeble leave the room so she could testify without him present. Up till at 4 o'clock, before my first story aired at 6, that was last night's 11 o'clock news, the speaker was keeping him as House Judiciary Chairman and said he'd handled it fine, but then as I reported 90 minutes after that, he told me he was out as House Judiciary Leader.
Which happened first? His employer take action on him?
Correct.
Or the speaker did?
The employer. So I was told by he's employed by Partridge, Snow and Hahn, the prestigious law firm, and they reached out to me after they had gotten wind of that I was looking into this to say he'd been put on leave while this is looked at.
A week before the election, I don't know you to be loose with this stuff. Stories like this are devastating. Yes. When people are starting to pay attention. You're always preaching about how they're really paying attention
last 2 weeks. Yep.
So clearly you are confident that well, let me ask you, are you confident in your reporting on this that it rises to a higher level than a misunderstanding?
I would say, within the confines of what my editors want me to say, we are well aware of the sensitivity of this issue at any time of year, and especially this close to the election.
And we also know that once alleged, the genie back in the bottle, from a public opinion and polling point of view, can be, and an electable point of view, can be impossible.
And this has been, as I was saying, this has been some issue has been hanging out there for 3.5 years between Kazarian and Keeble, and all I have documented is this email from March, but that's even, March is now how many months ago?
But there's no specificity on the actions, the events, what Mr. Keeble may have been reported or alleged to have done?
Not in the email, and it does not appear there was any investigation conducted in the House to find out if it was credible.
But the email being somewhat abstract, your own reporting, again.
I did, and that's what I said. I talked to 12 other, so it's not just the email. I talked to 12 other reps.
I don't know. It's so funny. I'm not going to run the tape because we don't have time. I want to get to the polling data and the rest of the intent of the program tonight. But even on your own Newsmakers debate with Steve Frias and the Speaker, you asked him questions knowingly, it seems to me now, because you've been working on the story for a while, and he may have flinched once, but he was playing the old, sometimes things come up, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm very comfortable with the way I've handled all this kind of stuff. Avoidance is sometimes not a great strategy, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the Speaker is comfortable with how he handled this. Cale Keeble's lawyer calls these, quote, unsubstantiated years-old allegations. So they, that's where they stand.
All right. Will it jolt the District 15 election?
You got 10,000 voters. You don't know. You had a close election last time. If this switches 50 or 60 votes, it could turn the election if it's that close again.
All righty. When we come back, we'll talk about the statewide polls. This governor's race, the Senate race. Stay with us. All right, let me give you the synopsis from Eyewitness News on the latest polling data.
416 likely voters in our exclusive Eyewitness News Roger Williams University poll give incumbent Governor Gina Raimondo an 11-point lead over Republican Alan Fung. Breaking down Raimondo voters, 70% say they are definitely voting for her, 15% say it is unlikely they will change their mind, but 11% say there's a good chance they could change their mind.
Most voters are locked in for the governor. I don't see a great deal of her support moving away from her. The same thing can be said with Alan Fung.
Fung has slightly stronger support from his voters. 73% say they are definitely voting for him. 16% say they probably won't change their mind. 9% say there is a good chance they could change their mind.
It would be very tough at this point.
Eyewitness News political analyst and pollster Joe Fleming says, for those who pick Republican-turned-independent Joe Trillo, his support is softer.
About 36% of the voters said there's a good chance they could change who they're voting for in the election 8 days from now. And there's also another 12% who said they weren't sure what they're going to do. So that is almost half of Joe Trillo's voters that could move away from him.
Well, listen, you can't complain about your poll now. He's up 2 points.
He's gaining ground. He's moved up in every poll.
I don't mean to be snarky. I think one of the things that's interesting is that Joe, thought he was coming like a freight train, and a Go Local prov online poll from this Delavolpe pollster from Harvard had him at 17.
Right.
He argues methodology issues back and forth. I'd never known you to be that. You're just not that far off.
Well,
you wouldn't have missed it by 50%.
Thank you. I mean, the Providence Journal poll had Joe Trillo at 5%. So we're both in the same range.
And he
with Joe
screened
Trillo.
that was heavily democratically weighted.
I'd also just point out, even if we had only done one poll so far, you could say, well, maybe we had a weird sample. That does happen in polling. But this is our fourth this year, and you can see the consistency, which tends to make me think it's more credible. Trillo was at 6% in February, 6% in July, 7% in September, and now he's at 9%. That actually makes sense, right? Didn't move much early on. Now he's got some commercial and stuff, and he's picked up a little bit.
Yeah, but the idea that he's going to Bob Healy this thing and race to the low 20s is belied by his high negative rating and the move and the fluidity of his support.
Even if he does pick up and move up, it's not going to be enough to win the election.
Yeah, because you now need, you only needed 41% last time to win the election. You now need probably 46 or maybe more with how high the governor's.
The governor's moved their numbers up.
It is an unusual race in the sense that I'm asking about the third place guy at 9%, and we're talking about the mechanics of that, which I understand appears weird to you. It feels weird to me. It's been a very strange race. We have a repeat of the Fung-Raimondo contest. The wild card has been Trillo, and we've all wondered whether or not his wild card would have a major effect on this race. And the answer is, in part, yes, but not competitively to win. So we almost have to wean ourselves from the focus on Joe Trillo and to see what are the dynamics that move the numbers one way or the other for the governor and for the mayor of Cranston, right? It's a strange thing. I mean, Trillo's a 16-year veteran. I mean, he's part of the scene, but it seems like the balloon popped.
Yeah, he's getting better known now. More than 70% of the voters know Joe Trillo at this point.
Not the right way.
No, but I was going to say, when you look at it, okay, they know him, but now it's in a negative light. Everyone's negatives went up a little bit in this survey, but Joe Trillo's went up a great deal. And I think a lot of that's with the press he's had the last couple of weeks has been all negative for him. So people see him more now as a negative light as they view him.
I mean, it goes to show you that the old adage, just spell the name right, is not necessarily true.
No.
Yeah, correct. I mean, I think there is such a thing as bad publicity, and I think Joe Trillo's found it in recent weeks, the caulking gun with Mattiello. I do think, I will say, where I increasingly think, especially after our new poll, that for me the Trillo effect is less about his poll numbers and the votes he gets and more about the mind share he takes up, right? So both the time we're spending talking about him, the time the media spent with him, his time he's gotten in the debates, and the time the Fung campaign has spent, I'd say more so than the Raimondo campaign, to deal with him.
Huge mistake by Alan Fung engaging in this thing. I told Joe on the radio yesterday, you're too young to remember roller derby. But remember when Joni Weston, I think it was Joni Weston, San Francisco Bay Bombers would sling out in front? That's Governor Raimondo, like pacing to go through the jammers. And the two other racers or whatever they were, the runners, are like fighting each other to get into the race, and Fung got tangled up with Trillo. Now, by the way, based on these numbers, though, I guess he might as well just beat the tar out of Trillo to try to get the bulk of his transitional numbers, right?
I totally agree. We saw this in the Channel 12 Roger Williams debate with the two of them going out and the governor standing in the middle smiling. She's just standing out
so I mean, if Fung can win all the undecideds and a sizable chunk of Trillo voters, there's a path for him. The problem is
nobody does that.
That's the thing. You never win every vote. Some people don't vote then, or some people will stay with Joe Trillo. So I think that's where it's getting dicey for the Alan Fung campaign.
Yeah, 36% of Trillo's voters said there's a good chance they could change their mind. Doesn't mean they're going to, but there's a good chance. Another 12% weren't sure what they're going to do.
You don't know what change the mind means. It might mean I'm not coming out.
It could.
Or that I'm not voting.
And by the way, you see things you don't expect. There could be Trillo voters who end up with Raimondo. It sounds unusual, but we know they were Barack Obama 2012 voters who cast a ballot for Donald Trump 4 years later. People's politics can be surprising, you know?
And keep in mind, Alan Fung has not really moved his numbers in 4 years. He got about 36% when he ran for governor 4 years ago, and all opposed is between 34 and 37%.
It kind of, I have offered plenty of editorial on this, but I think it speaks for itself. Where's the vision? Where's the big time picture? Where's the magnanimity that you expect from a gubernatorial candidate? To her credit, this governor has, she's done what she's done. She's championed what she's done. You may disagree with what she's done. Her competency was a huge issue that he only came into late. He got tangled up with Trillo. Her competency was the issue that he could have really, really dug in, and I think he just bided too much time.
Well, I do think
we'll talk about this on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at these numbers, the other thing we haven't talked, I think we have, Anita, Alan Fung's favorable rating, and that was very telling to me in the poll, which is Alan Fung. Here we are. That's his degree of support, but also we have the rating for how people feel about him. Last time, Alan Fung was at, I want to say 35% unfavorable. Thank you, Joe. He's now up to 45% unfavorable. So a 10-point swing in Alan Fung's favorable number in just the last
in part
month.
Self-induced pain, but as you would say, the advertising dumping on him.
They've been dumping on him for the last month and a half. Negative, 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 and his negative numbers going up.
And
people don't like it,
they started immediately. That was the thing that surprised me most with the Fung campaign. I thought, okay, it looked pretty clear for most of the summer it was going to be a Gina Fung race again, but the Raimondo campaign came out the morning after. They screwed up the ad, so they screwed up a little, but they were ready the morning after the primary to just start to go to war with Fung, and it took a little while for the Fung campaign to ratchet up, which gave an opening, I think, to the governor and her allies in the Democratic Governors Association.
And the primary really helped the governor, because no one expected her to get 58% of the vote in the primary.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that gave her momentum coming out of there. And then, as Ted said, coming right out the day after the primary with ads and really pushing it, really kept her momentum.
She never moved the needle. She's been in that mid-40 thing the entire, but it's the high end of that spectrum.
Right.
The dam could break. She could get 50 on election day.
Well, I'd also add, I think Joe makes a good point, which is the primary. And I think a big reason why she did so much better than most people expect in the primary is because of how much time and money they've invested in the ground game, field, dragging out their voters, getting them to the polls. And don't forget, now she's not going to have to do it alone. She's doing it in concert with the very well-funded Sheldon Whitehouse campaign.
Speaking of, you know, you never say a race is over, so we'll keep the governor's race at bay. But the other race, it's over. Next. You got a video? So there are the numbers that have not moved an inch from the get-go, and this is not a puzzle, but for those who are expecting, and even Sheldon, who was here last night, had this very confident viewpoint. We only have a couple of minutes. I'm disappointed in the pollable numbers right now, because Sheldon deserved a competitive race just to keep him honest. You know, that athletic phrase, right? But Flanders is a blue chip guy with not a blue chip campaign.
First thing is lack of money.
He was lose some blue chip stocks that he could cash in and fund his campaign with, because I think money's been a big. Sheldon Whitehouse was popular, but I think, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe, but just, I think, you know, he's just, Fung is not being outspent to the degree Flanders is being outspent. This is not even close.
On ratio, at least for the 6-week season between the primary and the general.
And I mean, right now, Sheldon Whitehouse has this big lead because of 3 groups. Females, he's up by 31%. Democrats, he's getting 90% of the Democratic vote. And voters over the age of 60, he's getting 62% of their vote. Those are 3 key groups in the state of Rhode Island.
Flanders is a very decent and accomplished guy. Doesn't want to sell out. I mean, the toughest he got on Sheldon was to call him a gas bag in a whatever the hell. Not that we needed that in this race, or that Sheldon deserved that, but that's all he wanted to do. Didn't have as much money. Donald Trump is 62% negative, according to your numbers here. Talk about an uphill battle. What a race he could have run for governor if he wanted that job.
You know, I was thinking about this when I looked at the poll, because, you know, as a political reporter, I want there to be competitive races, and I want to be able to have debates with, and that was a great debate, I thought, between two of them when we did it. Like, they both came to a lot of stuff.
Really good issues debate.
But, you know, how are you going to get good candidates to run for elections if they think it's always going to end up this way, you know?
Well, you have to know that you're biting off a lot. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Final thought.
My final thought is in the Senate race that simply, the big thing with Flanders was he couldn't raise enough money to be competitive. You need money.
All right, so listen, it's still election day next Tuesday. You know, don't rely on me to suggest it's over. It's just that, you know, you should vote for who you want to see in the seat, no matter what I say. It's just that, you know, the numbers at this level don't lie. Guys, thanks. We'll check in after the election, of course, and we'll be right back with a final word. Listen, on the speaker's race, we have a scheduled interview in the afternoon, meaning I've already done it, with Steve Frias, the opponent for Nick Mattiello. The speaker has every invitation to come in here, and we'll rearrange the schedule for the balance of the week for him to talk about the issues, his re-election bid, and this controversy that he's embroiled with his rep that he just reduced from chairman to everyday legislator. So we'll see how that turns out. We'll see you on the radio at 3 until 6 on WPRO. I'm back here tomorrow night. Good night.